you. Okay, now we can see the names coming in. There's
Right.
another Vander there. Any relation, Francois, to Neil?
We have a whole collection of people.
we call them clans.
So they're part of the clans, but probably not.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just gonna give it a couple of minutes and make sure everybody's in. Normally these things take a minute or two.
Yep. Let's. Oh, Roz is here. Hello, Roz. She probably can't. Can she? Not allowed to talk.
No, she's.
And it's Roz, so I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Hello, Tracy.
Yes. Hello, Tracy. Okay. All right. Well, let's get started. And then, so welcome everybody to this. I think this is the first Digital Insight session for 2025. These sessions usually take place on a quarterly basis. We are going to increase the cadence to a once-a-month session. And that's just because things are just moving so fast in the space that it just makes sense for us to do more of these sessions and to get more people, more of our vendors and subject matter experts involved in guiding and leading this discussion around technology in the GBS sector. So today we've got two special guests on the call. With me, Greg Sarandos and Francois van der Merwe. We're going to kick off with a short presentation by Greg, followed by Francois. I'll introduce Greg now, and then Francois, if that's okay, I'll introduce you when Greg is done. So Greg is a leader in responsible AI, focusing on leadership, strategy, and opportunities. He's the co-founder and CEO of the African Academy of Artificial Intelligence, a firm that helps organizations integrate AI into their strategy, operations, and products. This integration drives competitive advantage and future-proofs businesses. He lectures at Gibbs and the Henley Business Schools, preparing future leaders with vital expertise in AI strategy, leadership, and opportunities. Welcome, Greg. Just to add, Greg and Francois did a keynote presentation at our conference in November, and it rained, and we were in a hall with a what seemed to be a very noisy roof, and Greg and Francois did their absolute best, but we just felt it necessary to rerun the session because it was such an important session, and it was, I think people just weren't able to hear everything, and so with that, here we are. So Greg, I'm going to hand over to you, and then we'll catch up at the end.
Thank you so much, Neville and Natasha, for having us back. My role here is to, demystify AI, eliminate the fear factor, give you some local and global research on AI uptake and usage, and I have two use cases in AI for financial services, one for a digital first startup that's worth about $10 billion, and the other is JP Morgan Chase. And then I provide some frameworks about where you can start your AI journey. At that point, we'll stop for a quick Q&A, and then I'll hand over to Francois to get into how you do certain things. He has a couple of use cases, at least one from a BPESA member, about how you can use AI to integrate into your strategy, operations, and your products. Natasha, when I do this, can you just go to the next slide, please? I have a 20-year association with BPESA. And I know this number because Tracy Friedman introduced me to a very good friend of mine who's featured in one of our use cases. It was on a golf day in 2005 I'm pretty sure it's 2005. And we're very happy to be invited to present at the BPESA Boundless Conference in November. But as Neville alluded to, that presentation had some minor technical difficulties in the form of an epic thunderstorm. It hasn't been seen since. So if you've been to the Kailami, if you were there, just by a show of reactions or chats, if you were at the Boundless Conference back in November. But if you've been to the Kailami racetrack, there's basically a 4-story high airport hangar with a tin roof, and it looks something like I'm going to do a reenactment. I'm looking over at my team going, what's this all about, Greg? I'm going to do a reenactment now. Okay, now that I've had my fun, we'll go on to the next slide. This is a little shot of Francois talking and me pretending to be able to hear him. Oh, shoot. So next slide, Natasha. The AI environment is one of fear, hype, and confusion. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of activity in the media. There's a lot of pressure from our senior management and our boards to do something for the love of God. Do something for the love of God with AI. A year ago, that 67% of executives felt pressure from the board to do something with AI, and what that leads to the next slide, please. The one that starts with results in decision making. That results in decisions made based on fear of missing out, inertia, and impulsive decision. And we do not want you to make decisions based on fear. We don't want you to say, oh gosh, I'm behind, I need to catch up. We want you to think strategically about how to get going with your AI journey. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go into a poll, conduct a poll by a show of hands or reactions or message in the chat about the leadership challenges that we're facing. I'm just going to go through these one by one, and then you can vote for, we're just having fun here. So 2 or 3 of them is cool. 1, mass job losses. B, 2, machines take over, dystopia, the Terminator. 3, privacy issues, like IP protection, customer and company data protection, or GDPR or POPIA. These are different issues, but they kind of are managed out of the same business unit in most corporations. Risk management, governance, and compliance, or GRC. Expanding the digital divide rather than contracting it. Ethical concerns like bias or deepfakes. Okay, so by a show of hands or by reactions or chats, who votes for A, mass job losses? B, machines take over, dystopia, the science fiction crowd. C, privacy issues or IP protection. D, customer and company data protection, or GDPR POPIA. E, risk management, governance, and compliance. F, expanding the digital divide. And G, ethical concerns like bias or deepfakes. Neville, can you kind of give us I can't see the reactions. Actually, I can move over and see the reactions on the Zoom page. So we have
A looks like got a lot of
losses. Mm-hmm.
And then C, G, yeah, G.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's across the board, really.
Yeah, and for me, it's losing my job or my company. Oh, sorry, I cheated there. It's a little joke I like to play in some of our, but often most audiences, it's ethical concerns like bias and deepfakes, which I don't necessarily agree with. Mass job losses. We were presenting to CMOs, chief marketing officers yesterday, and 0 hands went up mass job losses. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what that's all about. But these are all concerns, and they're all legitimate concerns. I've even in past presentations argued that machines taking over dystopia is silly. It's a science fiction thing. But the reality is, when you look at the training models, if they're built for good, then we get good results. But they're built for evil, we get bad results. And lots of very, very smart people, just like in the nuclear weapons age, when nuclear weapons were starting to come through, the smartest people in the Soviet Union, America, and around the world, and Europeans were actually working very hard to put up the guardrails to make sure we didn't have an accidental nuclear catastrophe. We do know that's happening now. We just hope it's as effective as the nuclear age. Next slide, please. AI research. The AI research epicenter of the world is not just in the United States. It's not in California. It's not Silicon Valley or even San Francisco. It comes down to a 12 square block area called the Haight-Ashbury District in San Francisco. And that also happens to be the same place, the epicenter for the hippie movement in the 1960s. So that was the place of LSD experimentation, smoking pot in public, and those kinds of things. It just so happens that that's the same place where the AI innovators are. So on the left, you have the hippies. On the right, modern age, you have Google AI, and you have Microsoft AI, and you have OpenAI, and you have all the rest are in that place on the right side of the street. Elon Musk and X and Uber, they're all right, not Uber, but Grok, they're all on the right side of the thing. Now, why that is, I think deserves some academic research, but it's a very interesting outcome that's where we are. Next slide, please. So the fact that these people, so I'm switching back and forth, are all in the same place and have similar kind of demographic profiles. They're all super smart. They all went to Stanford or Berkeley, or mostly. They all are multimillionaires, even if they're in their 20s. And they all have a certain very progressive leading politics. That leads to what we call trainer bias. So the people that are the AI researchers that are designing these models and putting them out there, you have trainer bias. So when you look at from the top right, counterclockwise or anti-clockwise to the fours, that was a result of a query that says, show me Vikings. And these don't necessarily look like Vikings. And then the bottom right, it said, show me two popes. And though it would be nice that we had two popes that looked like this, that is not historically correct. And that is a result of trainer bias or AI researcher bias. The next example comes down to AI training data bias. Now, if you talk about King Shaka, is King Shaka a warlord and a murderer and destructor and the destroyer of entire civilizations? Sorry, we're on AI training data bias with the 4 books. Sorry, please, Natasha, go forward by 1. Yeah, there. Next one, please. Okay, cool. Now go back 1. Okay, so top right, counterclockwise, those are the Vikings, and then the popes are on the bottom right. Go ahead and leave this here. Thank you. So those are the popes that don't look like popes. And in any generation. So go on, Natasha, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the AI training data bias. King Shaka, as I mentioned before, are they a destroyer of entire civilizations and their own people, or is he a defender of his people and a great warrior? Right, and that's a legitimate question. So what the training data does is it goes into the internet, scrapes everything off of there, and that becomes the information that answers inquiries. Is King Shaka good or is King Shaka evil? The top left one is a best-selling book on Amazon about King Shaka. It happens to be a screenplay written by a couple dudes for the Civic Theater in Johannesburg. I'm pointing south, so that's not even a real thing. It's a screenplay, but it's a top-selling book, so it's going to go into the training data. Top right, that I imagine was a couple of Americans or Europeans or Brits that did their PhD research in KwaZulu-Natal and spent a couple years studying this stuff and publishing a academic research paper and then making that into a book. Nope. I was actually speaking to a bunch of academics at Gibbs, and I said, I better check these people out. It turns out they're the writers and designers of children's book. So the number 2 book about King Shaka is a children's book. We have to go to number 9 to find a book that's actually written by a Zulu, but this is not a historian or a PhD researcher. This guy sits on several boards, corporate boards, and you have to go to the number 22 best-selling book to actually get a historian. And this is a guy I met. He's very, very smart. So this is a kind of training data bias that actually gives incorrect answers, which is different from hallucinations, which is another thing. Next slide, please. The next issue, the number one issue in an audience like the global business processing, global business process sector, business process outsourcing, contact center outsourcing, and contact centers themselves, and this is true of those that could hear us at the BPESA conference, is mass layoffs. And there's a couple of different points of view here that I'd like to just briefly go over. One, and we'll cover this in a minute. Actually, let me come back to this particular issue. But the question is, are the new jobs created before the old jobs are destroyed, or do we have a gap between jobs being destroyed, mass layoffs, and then the new jobs or opportunities being created? It's a very, very important issue. But these, by the way, most of these images are created by GPT. I love this little guy here. He's the overlord. He's putting people out on the street, but he's not terribly happy about it. And I tried to improve on this image. But he kept getting more and more evil, and the people got rid of their 890s era briefcases, ended up with backpacks and suitcases, and they look like they're world travelers. So that's mass layoffs. We'll come back to that in a moment. Next slide, please. A dystopia, machines take over, like I mentioned before. The science fiction-y element doesn't really resonate with me emotionally, but these things AI can be, the models can be designed for evil, and they can do bad things. And as I also mentioned before, lots of very smart people have been working very hard to make sure that this doesn't happen now or in the future. Close the digital divide. AI can close the digital divide in education. This image here is showing me a classroom in rural Kenya where students are in the classroom. The use case here comes out of the Copenhagen Consensus. Bjorn Lombard is the chief academic there. They wrote a book called 12 Best Things. These are the 12 best things that the world can do for development work in health and education, environment, climate, and all these different things. And for education, they said, if you take each one of these students here, writing diligently, all with the right hands, apparently, it looks like they're all right-handed somehow, and give them a tablet for 1 hour a day, their education outcomes improve by 3x year on year. Why? Because you get a classroom, especially one of this size, you teach to the middle, which means the most advanced students get bored, and the students that are less advanced are struggling to keep up, and they end up giving up. And that's a real problem. Next slide, please. Voice chat. This is a very important, for me, killer app for contact centers and client communications and a lot of other things. The image here is a woman in rural Kenya speaking in her own language to ChatGPT, asking questions, to getting answers, doing research, doing whatever she wants to do. So let's say this woman is let's say she's 45. When she was 20, Google was invented, and Google gave us the world's information. It gave us the world's access to all information. And when she was maybe 30, YouTube was invented, and YouTube today, anybody in the world that has internet connection, access to the internet, and a power supply, they can actually take courses from Harvard. They can hear from the horse's mouth interviews with the world's best experts on any topic. That hasn't existed in rural Kenya before for two reasons. One, but it is possible now. Why? We have access to solar energies. It's very, very cheap. And we have Starlink, which provides internet from the skies. at a very, very affordable rates. It's not free, but it's very affordable. So her children now can take Khan Academy out of the US in conjunction with Microsoft, courses on electrical engineering or trigonometry or English or French or whatever they want to study. This for me is a killer app, both in education and closing the digital divide, but also for contact centers and back office processes. Jobs and competitiveness. We spoke about mass layoffs, and what about my job? This has kind of gone out of sequence. I do apologize for this. Just take a step back on the African Academy of AI. We're not AI evangelists. We're not like AI or die type of people, but we help organizations integrate AI into the strategy, operations, and products. We help companies understand where to start. And if you're just starting late, you think you need to catch up, please don't try to rush to catch up. We want you to make good decisions and prioritize AI initiatives within the business. Identify the risk, because just taking a step back in technology evolution, if you automate a broken process, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. If you don't have automation and if you don't understand all your processes and you inject AI, you don't have clean data, it could end up working out very badly for you. Next slide, please. Is AI in the hype cycle? So by a show of reactions or mentions in the chat, do you think AI is in a hype cycle? Yes or no? By the way, part of the it's not in a it is in a hype cycle. This is the best image I could get from ChatGPT yesterday, and it's really horrible. I see lots of thumbs up. I'm not sure what those mean, but thank you for that. Let's get switch to the chat here on this machine. So I answered this question with a ja nee in Afrikaans. Is AI in the hype cycle? Well, by show of hands, how many people are using ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or one of the other AIs? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Most audiences like yours is close to 90%. So in that sense, I'm glad I have a second machine so I can see the reactions. It makes my life so much easier. So yeah, it's not in a hype cycle because in 2 years, like 90% or more of this audience is using ChatGPT. How many are using the paid versions of whatever AI you're using, ChatGPT or whatever? How many are using the paid version? In normal audiences, like it's about 20%. Yours is probably looking more like, my guess is 50%. There's lots of reasons why it's a good idea to do the paid versions. First and foremost, you need to protect your company's data. And if you have the free versions, your data goes into the training models. And if you get ChatGPT and the paid version, you still have to go through a little process to protect your data, which we can show you how to do later. And in terms of it is in a hype cycle. How many are integrating using AI in your processes, your workflows, or your teamwork? So not just for your own personal productivity, but for working I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 out of how many on the chat? So it's actually more than normal. And we'll talk about the differences between the two. So it is a near kind of thing in terms of is AI in the hype cycle, in terms of how people are using it. This is a little break about, you might be wondering by now why Captain America here is the co-founder of the African Academy of AI. It's because it's not one skill, it's 20, right? So my chairman is Terrence Taylor from Sierra Leone. He's actually in Sierra Leone now. Thank you for transitioning the slide. He's an expert in learning and development and people and change management and culture. Monisha is an expert in AI governance, risk management, and compliance. Francois, you'll hear from later. He's brilliant with AI innovations and implementations, especially in terms of prioritizing, focusing on high impact stuff. Then Munetsi is now with AWS. He's brilliant with AI and digital and data. And Johan Stein is the brightest voice in this country, but also around the world in terms of responsible AI and ethics. Those guardrails, he thinks about that stuff all day, every day. And the answer is, first of all, don't be this guy. I tried to get ChatGPT to get the guy running alongside the robots, right? And he's not. We're going against the robots. I finally gave up and I said, don't be this guy. You want to be working with AI. Um, you want to be working with the AI as your second brain or as your intelligent assistant, which we'll cover at the very end of this presentation. AI will not replace people. It's always the question, will AI will replace me? No, but the people that know how to use AI will replace you. I wrote a business day article last year. Basically, the theme was AI won't replace your company. People that know how to use AI will replace those that don't. That's a very, very important distinction. People that in companies that can learn how to leverage AI will survive. And in fact, well, we'll cover some of those other issues in a moment. How many know what a Luddite is, or Luddite, depending on American pronunciation or the nobody? By show of thumbs up. Okay, one. Okay, that's cool. So they become okay. We got a couple more coming through. Thank you for participating. I do appreciate the thumbs up. It shows that we're engaging. They used to make tech just like everything else. They used to make textiles by hand in the early 1800s. Cotton gins, these other machines started appearing in the factories, as you can see on the right side, and the Luddites are on the left. So bottom left, this is manual process of textile building, making t-shirts and jeans, whatever it might be. And amazingly, I took these snapshots out of a video. The children are featured in the Luddite manual, low skilled labor and no skilled labor workforce, which really shows how far the world has moved along, right? So we don't really have child labor anymore. At least it's not that prevalent. So the cotton gins and these other machines came along, and the Luddites, they went into mass protests, there were violent protests, they attacked the factories, and at the end, it didn't do any good because now the machines are making all the textiles, and it's been that way for a long time. Yeah, you can stay on that slide, please. So Luddites put down all machinery hurtful to commonality, celebrate people's history. They're playing on people's nostalgia and emotions, like, gosh, if these children can't work, what are we going to do? Where are we going to get our clothes? And what about all these jobs? And the answer is something I'll cover in just a minute. Next slide, please. We're going to skip over the run of show. I think you kind of get that by now. Time to go to the next slide, please. These are some of the tech milestones that are really, really important. And we start with the printing press in 1846. Then we get on to electricity and a light bulb, 1879. What does electricity and light bulbs in the home do? They allow people to study and work at night after dark. Didn't really have that before. The first automobile was invented in America, just kidding, in Germany in 1885. The radio was invented in 1895. We'll skip forward to the 1930s. I'll come back to the other two. Broadcast TV, the transistor, which gave us cell phones, PCs, commercial internet, smartphones, ChatGPT, and hundreds in between. And just think for a moment, what do all these inventions have in common? And that is they created more better paying jobs than those that existed before, including in textiles, right? I'll repeat that with the provision. Each one of these inventions created more jobs than they destroyed, ... eventually. So now we look at the assembly line came in 1913 for the automobile. It was invented in 1885. 1913, the assembly line was invented. And then the Model T price came down by 2/3 to $260 in 1925, making it affordable. So what happened after 1925 is then there was a quick elimination of using horses for transportation. And why it may seem like nostalgic or sexy, I'm going to canter to work in the morning. Imagine you live in a northern climate, and in about a month from now, all the snow is going to start melting into slush. You can imagine how dangerous and ugly that can be. So the automobile eventually became a very welcome invention, but it took 45 years from invention to affordability for it to come to reality. And the trouble with ChatGPT and this AI revolution is we have maximum 3 to 5 years. I think in your industry, you have maybe 2 to 3 years really to adapt and embrace some of these technologies. And we'll cover what that looks like in a bit. Next slide, please. Okay, I have some research. Please get prepared to screenshot or take pictures of these. Just stay on that slide, please. Someone to get ready to sorry, screen grab or a screen capture or take pictures of these some of this data. I'll go through very quickly in the interest of time. Gen AI and company policy. 45% of companies, this is from the middle of last year, were on a journey. Half of them hadn't really started the AI journey, but they had planned, they had put steps in place to do something. AI as an unofficial tool is 24%. That basically means that if you think 30% of your workforce is using ChatGPT in their daily work, it's actually 3 times that. That's what the research I'm going to show you. So people are using ChatGPT, your employees, whether you know it and like it or not. Next slide. AI use cases. This is like the list of the top uses of AI: product research, marketing content, data analytics, and the rest. Next slide, please. Anticipated commercial benefits, effective AI in the company, productivity. Corporations are always going to look to cut costs first, especially when there's so many unknowns of the benefits of AI from an opportunities point of view. Then we get into competitiveness, turnover, logistics, and the rest. Next slide, please. Gen AI applications, chatbots is number 1, but I really like, as I mentioned before, this conversational user interface in language, preferred language, and even AWS has dialects in testing at the moment. Dialects, of course, are complicated because it takes so much compute, and there's so many dialects. It becomes very difficult, but certainly we get recognition in 2,000 languages on chatbots, voice to text, text to voice, text and written content, code generation, and many more. Next slide, please. And the previous ones, sorry, were Worldwide Works, Arthur Goldsteck's research from middle of last year. This is very recent. This research was published by McKinsey this month. As mentioned, 3 times more employees are using Gen AI for 1/3 or more of their work than their leaders imagine. And the one on the right says millennials are actually have the biggest uptake, not Zoomers, which surprised me. Next slide. 92% of companies are planning to invest in AI, and 1% say we're good. We've achieved our targets. We achieved as much as we can from Gen AI. Next slide, please. Just take a quick picture of these and just switch over because I want Francois to have plenty of time. And the next slide, please. Cool. Leaders need to recognize the responsibility of driving Gen AI and transformation. 2.4x. These are some of the big names. But there's a fun story here about Anthropic, which is Claude, OpenAI, which is ChatGPT. They're the homegrown large language models. Then we have Microsoft, Google, which are the incumbents. They have so much data in their own. They know everything about all of us. But the question is, what's the quality of that data? And then you have Inflection AI on the bottom right. Inflection was a startup. Homegrown play from the former founder of Google DeepMind, Mustafa Suleyman. In 2022, they got $200 million in investment. In 2023, they got $1.4 billion in investment from Greylock Partners, whose lead partner in this investment was Reid Hoffman, who's a former PayPal mafia. And he also sits on the board of Microsoft. So within months of that investment, Microsoft took it. They called it an acqui-hire, not acqui as in water, acqui as an acquisition hire. They went in and they hired all the staff and it basically disappeared from existence. And one of my worries is that we'll end up with like 5 or 6 popular players, and they control everything. We need to actually add NVIDIA and Oracle to this list. NVIDIA is the hardware player that, as of yesterday, was worth $3.44 trillion. That doubled over 12 months ago and tripled over the year before. They took a big hit when DeepSeek did a PR play. It's a Chinese large language model. This is about 3 weeks old now. They say they built this large language model that's as good as the paid version of ChatGPT for $5.5 million. I wish the media and the industry had questioned that number a little bit. They'd cast scrutiny over that number because there's no way they did that for $5.5 million. In fact, they say even they admit that that excludes infrastructure and prior research, which when you're building AI is kind of everything, right? So NVIDIA took a hit and they came back. Oracle is important because they don't have a large language model. So everybody is willing to host their models within their Oracle's environment because Oracle is Switzerland, they're neutral. Next slide, please. Where does generative AI come from in relationships with bias, preference, point of view, perspective? I don't like the word bias because it implies malintent or malicious intent. But as we described before, sorry, these slides went out of sequence, but it's fine. We talked about the training data bias, and we spoke about the training data bias and the training, sorry, trainer bias as well. Next one, next slide. The large language models are the ticket to the game. Everybody's going to get competitive advantage by competing using their internal or intrinsic data. What does that look like? Well, first of all, you need clean quality data. Next slide. To do anything with AI, if you don't have clean quality data, you need to go back to the digital transformation exercise. And next slide, the outcomes of any AI program are only 5 things, and they're all related to productivity, quality, or personalization. 3 things, right? So increase personal productivity, all those 90% or 100% of thumbs that went up said, are you using GPT in your work or personal life today? Done. Operational efficiencies. This is when we get into teamwork, processes, and workflows. Improve quality and consistency. That's the 3rd benefit. I write a paper. I say, don't change my language, but check for my grammar so I don't have grammatical mistakes. That's an improvement in quality. Personalization, personalized offerings. Francois is going to cover that in a couple minutes. And innovative AI-enabled products. Those are the 5 things. Take a picture of the slide, please, because this is really, really important. I'll give 1, 2, 3 seconds to pause. Next slide. Integrations. As a first step, look for AI use cases in your business in every one of these areas: strategy, marketing, corporate finance, HR, supply chain, and the rest. I'll give you a quick use case with JP Morgan about how they've actually gone about this. They have a centralized AI unit, and they're deployed to work out the how. Marketing says, sales says, I want to automate proposal writing. How are you going to do that? Well, the AI team will help them do that. Next slide. By the way, this integration is about a half-day conversation in one of our courses. Klarna is a fintech out of the UK. They do BNPL, buy now, pay later. They do 50 million loans a month. They're massive out of Norway. They put an AWS agent, call center agent out in front of their contact center. This is a digital first company. This one's less depressing than the JP Morgan use case that's coming up. So the bot did the work of 700 agents. That's efficiencies. It saves them $40 million a year. But what does that mean? Well, obviously lower quality. Nope, the workload. Time to resolution, 11 minutes down to 2 minutes. Repeat inquiries, 25% drop. 35 languages, which is now 50 languages. And AWS now supports 6 South African languages, and they probably have 2,000 in their portfolio. If not now, then they will soon. So let's go to the next page. Go to the elephant, please. There we go. So how do you get started? And we'll conclude with the JP Morgan Chase one. It's a big thing. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. Start with something small, high impact, low complexity, low impact, or low risk, and pick out those integrations one at a time. Going to determine what's possible. Next, just keep clicking through, please, Natasha. Decide what you want to do, why you want to do it, what you hope to achieve, prioritize, measure the results, and recalibrate. That's the model. Determine what's possible, decide what you want to do. Why do you want to do it? So low cost, reduce costs, improve quality, save money, drive more revenue, streamline things, whatever it might be. Prioritize, measure results, and recalibrate. Next slide, please. So Francois is going to cover this. Determine, decide, and measure. I'm just going to fly through this because I want to really leave some time. So go to the next slide, please, where it says JP Morgan's agility. Apologize for these extra clicks. That's on me. And just go and click through NLP, imagining new ways. So they put 3,000 employees dedicated to Gen AI, machine learning, data science in the centralized units. And again, as I said before, they go out to the business, the line management, and say, what do you want to do? Okay, cool. We'll help you do that the most effective and efficient and low risk way possible. They have 400 use cases in the bank. They have natural language processing and reinforcement learning are priorities for them. And imagining new ways to augment and empower employees with AI through human-centered collaborative tools and workflows, leveraging large language models, including ChatGPT. And apologize again for the double clicks. Go through to the next slide. Here we go. Thank you so much, Natasha. You're really good at you're getting really good at this with bad instructions from me. So they want to link use cases. This is their how in 3 steps. Use cases and outcomes as part of a pragmatic and disciplined approach to the technology. Create high impact use cases. They're focused on creating contained, well-chosen list of high impact use cases and directing resources to these applications. And focus, I love this quote, the last line. We're JP Morgan Chase. We're not going to be chasing any shiny objects here in AI. And I just love that. Important thing about JP Morgan Chase, and there's no evidence of any established company actually laying off people and replacing those jobs with AI. They haven't fired anybody. They haven't laid off anybody because of AI. Locally, there's a company, a medium-sized business with 68 employees. They, excuse me, they digitize 165 processes, and they have 18 use cases, and they haven't lost any business. They haven't laid off any employees, but each one of those employees uses AI as a second brain. So I just could click through those again. Sorry. We're going to skip this video. Best practice. This is my last slide. Then I'll hand over to Francois, and then Natasha, you can unshare. One is originality is non-negotiable. Don't say, write me a blog or do this for me. Everything is going to be a draft. Think of AI as your IA, your intelligent assistant. People think because AI can mean 20 different things to 20 different people. This is an intelligent assistant there to make you smarter, faster, better. Third, treat AI generated content as a draft. If you just turn around the stuff that comes out of GPT, things will not go well for you because people can spot. How many can spot by a show of a thumbs up AI generated content from 20 paces? I know I can. Remember the LinkedIn postings that would come through that were actually identical spacing of paragraphs, almost the same word count per paragraph. Fourth, and out of 5, use AI as a brainstorming tool. No matter how many hours you spent with your teams brainstorming stuff, you're always going to miss 1 or 2 things. So use that as a brainstorming or idea generation tool. And last but not least, invest in the paid versions. It's $20 a month. It's 400 Rand. It's not the end of the world. And then you go through a very short process to make sure that your data is not being shared to train future models. And for that, I would like to hand over to Francois. Sorry. Do you want to pause, Neville, for like 1 minute or 2 minutes for questions? Here you can just set up a meeting with us, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Neville?
No, all good, Greg. I think if you've got any questions, please pop them in the chat. I'm going to hand over to Francois. Francois, I've got a whole introduction for you, but I'm going to save that and then. But over to you, Francois. Take it away.
Please and thank you. Yeah, so folks, I've got 10 minutes available for us today, and so as you just afford me a little bit of time to just share my screen, and then we can kick off with something very, very interesting. I'm curious to find out, just show of hands, who here has seen the series Narcos on Netflix before? Okay, good. So today I'm going to share just a short clip of it. So I'm going to start by just playing this section.
Señores, les voy a decir quién soy. Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria. Mis ojos están en todos lados, o sea, ustedes no pueden hacer una puta sola mierda en el departamento de Antioquia sin que yo me entere. Sí, señores, no pueden mover un dedo. Un día yo voy a ser presidente de la República de Colombia. Y bien, me gano la vida haciendo negocios, así que pues fresco, tranquilo. Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias. Plata o plomo. Ustedes eligen. Listo, pues.
Right.
What this is all about?
Señores,
Why does this actually matter? You see, the thing is that Pablo Escobar arrives on this border post, and he effectively offers each and every one of the guards there the opportunity to choose between lead or silver, meaning he'll either kill them or he will pay them off. Now, that might sound quite aggressive, but the reality is that today we have the same type of scenario with AI. For those that embrace AI, they will get silver. But for those that don't, unfortunately, the news is that you'll get lead. And so I think when we look at this new world, look at it through the lens of the silver and the lead. But why have we as humans been so incredibly successful? You see, the thing is that we as humans are brilliant at leveraging opportunities. We're incredibly adaptive and we're immensely collaborative. But what does this mean to be human in the world of AI? Well, nothing has changed really, folks. When we think about it practically, we just adapt, we collaborate, and we leverage new AI tools, new ways of thinking, new ways of reasoning, and new ways of approaching this new world. But does our reliance on technology make us less or more human, in your view? Well, let us ask the caveman who did that. You see, let us ask the caveman who discovered fire. He used or she used technology, aka fire. And so if we think about those examples, our job as humans is to embrace and wield AI to architect value, just as the caveman did. And so when we think about this a little bit further, what I'd say is at every single point in a talk, we've got questions that people want to ask. And so now is your opportunity. Now is your opportunity to warm up those questions so that we don't have that little awkward time when people are asking questions or thinking of questions to ask. So for those that are statisticians, this should look very, very simple and straightforward. But for those that aren't, this is a population distribution graph with the age on the left-hand side. And in the middle, you've got a line between males and females. And so what we can see here is that there's loads of young people and not so many old people. Now, this graph is an African population distribution graph. What this means is that 42% of the world's people under the age of 30 will be in Africa. Now, in some cases, people will say, well, that's a big problem. But when I think about this and our propensity to leverage technology, this affords us the opportunity to use this incredible advantage of having the youngest workforce in the world that will be technology enabled to produce value far beyond what our ancestors or even our parents would have been able to do without these tools. So that means that the future is bright here in South Africa, but it has some uncertainty. It depends on the choices that every single one of you guys make here today. how you think about AI, how you think about leveraging these new technologies. Silver versus lead. Wielding AI and thinking about who do you actually collaborate with when it comes to implementing these tools in your environment, or in other cases, what you do with the people in your direct ecosystem. But how? How do you chart a path? How do you chart a path to adaptation, collaboration, and leverage in this world of AI? Well, as Stephen Covey said in his very, very famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, begin with the end in mind. You see, if you know where you're going and what you want to achieve, the path is a lot easier to find. And so what we've done is we said, well, if you want to know where you're headed to, one of the absolute best ways to do that is to have a clear understanding of where you're at right now and where most people would want to be. And so we developed an AI maturity model that basically assesses a multitude of different components of your business and makes it super easy for you to really get a firm understanding of where you're at and where you should be going to in the very next few months. And it really comprises everything from culture all the way through to return on investment and adoption and all of those beautiful things. And the beauty is that you can get this level of insight in just 5 minutes by just answering a few questions. And so whenever we engage with an organization, we always say, let's do the AI maturity assessment first. But today we're actually giving this away for free. So for everyone on this call, you'll see a QR code at the end, and you can use that to gain access to the AI maturity assessment completely free of charge. It took us a very long time to put together, and it's taken quite a bit of effort to refine it to make sure that the model that we present is not just a 5-step McKinsey model, but actually truly assesses your current state and your future desired state. But now I haven't really answered this question about what does it mean to be human in the world of AI. It's not that simple. In my view, we need a mandate. And so this is my very first stab at writing a human mandate in the age of AI. And so I'll read this verbatim to you. To be human in the future of AI in business is to exist not just as biological entities capable of certain tasks, but as the tool-wielding architects of a complex, value-abundant world. It is to uphold empathy where code cannot, to champion fairness where algorithms may falter, and to express creativity that AI can mimic, but not originate. It is the affirmation that while machines might calculate, optimize, and replicate, only humans can contemplate, empathize, and aspire. And so with that, folks, I think that this is the very first step for you to firmly understand what it means to be human in this world of AI. And so I'll like to open the floor for questions and answers. I've got around about a minute or two that I can allocate. And so if there's any questions, please feel free to ask them, and grab your phone, scan the QR code. We'll leave this up for a while so that you guys could get access to the AI maturity assessment.
Thank you, Francois. Wow, that was quite an impactful ending. I'm just going to check with, I see Lauren, you've got your hand up. Did you want to ask a question? I've opened you, so if you want to ask a question, you may have put it up by mistake. That's okay. But if there's anyone else that wants to ask a question, please.
I see we've got a question in the chat here from Benny. He's asking, do you have any advice for young youth who have no sound knowledge about AI and want to make an impact using AI? I'd say that this is probably one of the most challenging things that people deal with, and it's really the question of asking the right questions and finding the right problems. And so I wouldn't start with a tool and say, I want to use AI, I would ask, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And you can look around you. There's loads of problems that people would want to solve. And so this is a nifty way to do that. So folks, I appreciate each and every one of you, and it was absolutely fantastic spending a very, very short period of time with you. But it's been great, and I'm sure Greg and Neville will stay on for a little bit longer. So I leave you in incredibly capable hands. So on that note, fantastic spending some time. Have a fantastic day. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, Francois.
Bye-bye now.
Greg, while we still have a few minutes, you mentioned the voice app, you know, as a killer app. Do you wanna just get into a little bit more detail on that? Because I've seen some very powerful applications that are so easy to create, where being coached, being mentored, you know, going through sales techniques, selling techniques is incredibly powerful. But do you want to speak a little bit into that? Because I don't think a lot of people actually understand how broad and how wide that application can actually be.
Yes, and Francois, who's who's just gone on to a panel at a conference, he uses ChatGPT. He's written a prompt, he records his meetings, his presentations, and he puts them into the AI and says, what can I do better? And he goes, what do I do well? What can I do better? And he's coaching himself. Sales calls, the same thing. He records the sales calls. Well, you didn't really handle that objection very well, or you didn't catch onto this objection, or your energy was low, whatever it is, and it captures these things beautifully. And one of the things that we do is we've developed for a couple of clients is a sales proposal writer. So what you do when we do a sales call, my problem, because I'm an entrepreneur and I've got 100 things to do, is if I have to write a proposal, either it gets done at midnight, it gets done on the weekend, or it gets done 2 weeks hence, which none of those are ideal, especially for a guy that needs 8 hours of sleep, right? So what you do is when you have a sales call and you put it into Fireflies, Fireflies will help. It's actually technically it's agentic AI. So it's five GPTs or 5 AIs. It goes to what's the need, what's the solution, what's the process, what's the deadline, what's the cost, or whatever it is. And as I said before, that creates a draft of a sales proposal. So this particular client's an HR consultant. She spends 2 full days writing a proposal. And she's gotten that down to 2 hours. If you're spending 2 hours on a proposal, it comes down to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So there's a million different applications. And that specific one, what I was thinking in terms of the contact center industry, is people are required to speak, you know, the big languages. Is required to speak English or Zulu, one of those. But if somebody is native in a smaller language, or they're up in Africa or something, the bots can actually automatically detect language and have a conversation with you in a smarter way than you would expect.
Okay. Greg, we almost out of time. One last question. If
Sure.
there is one thing that a BPO operator could do, understanding that a BPO operator is locked into an existing contract where they deliver voice-based services, in your opinion, what are the 1 or 2 absolute must-dos that they need to think about that will improve what they do, or maybe even change the way they contract going forward?
Yeah, that's a very long answer to a very difficult question, but I think one is AI can handle most of your QA, which is an automatic cost reducer. One thing that's maybe possible is putting a bot out in front of the first line of contact with the customer. I know that's controversial, but that can be done. But I think the most important thing that a BPO operator can do is sit down with the customers and say, okay, now we're in the age of AI. What would you like to see from us? And you'd be surprised, always surprised. What can we do better? What would you like to see from us? And then if we do that for 10 customers, and you start to see the trends, the commonalities, and build those things and use AI to integrate in those things. And you separate the automation with AI injection. And of course, there's the analytics as well. a lot of the quality of the analytics will improve in terms of the insights of how your agents are performing. I say go talk to your customers, because they're thinking, gosh, I can reduce my cost. And you have to, in all BPOs can improve the value if they have the right technology and solution.
Okay, great. I don't see any more questions. So with that, Greg, I'd like to thank you and for Francois. Please thank Francois again on our behalf. Thank you very much. In closing, our next Digital Insights next month is going to be with OnVSource. They're a company out of the US. We're going to have them on. And we're going to be running, as I said, we're going to be running these sessions on a monthly basis. So please look out for them. We also have our value proposition launch in Cape Town on the 18th of March. That's a personal face-to-face session. So please look out for that. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. We will see you soon.
Thank you.